one man who is no doubt as happy as the proverbial pig at the travails of the European Union is the man who damns it and virtually all its works, except the wages section. Nigel Farage, a very welcome guest, and the leader, of course, of UKIP, and a redoubtable campaigner. Nigel, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Good evening, George. Nice to talk to you.
Now,
and,
am I right that you're delighted?
Well, look, this was the issue that got me into politics. You know, I was working in the City of London as a broker, and in 1990, the British government signed us up for the exchange rate mechanism, pegging sterling against the Deutschmark. I uttered a whole stream of obscenities when I first heard this had happened, predicted it wouldn't work, and it got me involved in politics. Am I pleased that it's on the edge of destruction? In one way, yes, but in another way, no, because actually there's going to be a very big human price to this too.
Well, and not just for foreign humans, but also for us, because 50% or more of our trade is with the European Union, and a very concerned. I was just looking at the Irish figures the other day after I saw Question Time. The amount of our goods and services that are purchased in the eurozone, including in the Republic of Ireland, just a few hundred yards from a part of our territory at least, it's going to be bad news for Britain as well as Johnny Foreigner.
Well, of course it is. And I mean, you know, if Europe does badly, if America does badly, all these things affect Britain, and it'll affect our exports of goods and services. Of that, there's no doubt. However, when you look at what's happening in Greece today, where Greece, a country with huge problems, I mean, their deficit is even worse than ours, and that's without Gordon Brown being there. They've got this massive...
Oh, that's a bit harsh, Nigel. Would have been in the Euro if it hadn't been for Gordon Brown.
Well, I tell you what, it's the one good thing he did, because had we been in the Euro, we would now be like Greece, of course, having had the wrong interest rates and everything else. But here you've got Greece, the country that invented democracy, now being governed by 3 foreign officials who once every couple of weeks land in a plane at Athens airport and go and tell the Greek government what their tax policy must be, what their spending policy must be, and the total humiliation that the Greeks are now being put through is why there are hundreds of thousands of people out on the streets every day. And if Greece is kept imprisoned in the euro by the big bankers and by the European bureaucrats and the World Bank and everybody else, then frankly, George, it will end in a revolution. So I think it is better to take the pain, for Greece to default, to go back to the drachma. Yes, of course, there'll be collateral damage for Greece and everybody else, but better to do that. Get your independence back, get your democracy back, and get back your pride and self-respect. So it's going to be very painful, but it needs to happen.
One thing that's not widely known is that when they talk about these bailouts and so on, one might be forgiven for imagining that the Greek people were being bailed out, that a lump of money was being given to help them. In fact, when we give them these bailouts, those bailouts go directly to the banks.
That's absolutely right. I mean, in fact, what is happening is we give money to Greece and they give it back to our banks, who should never have lent them the money in the first place.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the reality is that the Greeks are so indebted they can barely service the interest on the debts, all right? And what we're doing is we're forcing them to take on yet more debt. I mean, the whole thing is completely and utterly barking mad. It cannot last. Greece will default. Portugal will default. I suspect in time Ireland too will probably default. And we're going to finish up with a eurozone, which will be effectively a greater Deutschmark area. That, I think, is what's going to happen.
Well, I mean, that may very well be what happens. What should happen is another matter, of course. You're a supporter of free market capitalism. You're a supporter of you were yourself in this city.
Yeah.
Here, this is a system that allows a 31-year-old man, not allows, but makes it possible for a 31-year-old man, allegedly, to cost a bank $2 billion because of gambling.
Well, look, you know, I mean, things go wrong in the private sector. Let's not, kid ourselves that awful things don't go wrong in the public sector. Just look at the billions of pounds we wasted on a new computer system for the National Health Service. So
that's true, Nigel, but no 31-year-old man in the public sector could spend $2 billion. That's not possible.
No, but a 51-year-old man could, or woman could, and in the case of the NHS, they have. So I mean, stupidities are not confined to the private sector. I would agree that there is still a lot wrong with the investment banking system. It is still open to abuse. What it needs is good regulation, proper regulation, and what actually we've had is we've created the Financial Services Authority. There are 3,000 staff down in Canary Wharf, taking up a building, and frankly, they've been as good as useless. I believe in free markets, but for free markets to work properly, they need good rules. And really, ever since 2007-8, when this whole credit crunch first hit, politicians blame the bankers, but actually, it's the politicians and regulators that have not put in place proper rules.
Nigel, I'm glad you're back in the saddle. That last lad you had was not much cop. I mean, they must be glad to have you back at the UKIP.
Well, I don't know. I hope so. I'm back doing it. It's 7 days a week. It's all the hours God sends. But you know what? I'm enjoying it. And I absolutely believe that we're going to get our democracy back in this country. And, George, whether we're on the left or the right is irrelevant. We should be governing our own country, not having little people like Herman Van Rompuy making our rules.
Thanks very much, Nigel Farage. Keep on taking the wages and the X's, though. 08717 223344, leader of UKIP. Great campaigner. Great to have him back. This is George Galloway. This is The Week. This is TalkSport.